So Strong Recovery is part of the University of Rochester Medical Center, Strong Memorial Hospital. And I get the pleasure of being the Director of Addiction Services for that system and establishing treatment services throughout University of Rochester Medical Center. So I have some stuff here with some notes as I talk to you, but I was thinking, when Jackson asked me to speak, he said I had 2 hours. Now I'm thinking maybe that was a setup because I'm in the way of lunch. So I better trim that down. But in all seriousness, when I was asked to be the keynote speaker, it kind of took me back a little bit because, as we're celebrating recovery, I don't have the lived experience, I'm not in recovery, and thought, what can I add to this celebration? What exactly could I say or share that would be inspirational for, this celebration here at the Core Center? And the name of this center says it all, Core, Heartbeat of Recovery. And I thought, for about 21, going on 22 years now, I've had a front row seat in various levels, as a counselor, as a supervisor, as a director, administrator. I've had a front row seat to the amazement of recovery. So I have a perspective that I'm able to share, not just with people in recovery, but to anyone. And usually when I talk, I usually have stats. So I'm usually, talking about stats and, a specific drug or the effect of that drug. But thought, this is not a place for that. So we're not going to talk about stats. We're going to talk about a few months ago when I was getting ready to do a different talk, and I saw this thing that says more than 23 million people are living in recovery. Mm-hmm. You can too. And a lot of times, what happens in our society, in this community, we overemphasize the drugs. There's this overemphasis on the drug. Overdose and all these things that are happening, all of the negative things, get all the highlight in the news and everywhere. And I think we are in a moment now where the light has to be shined on recovery, right? Recovery can't exist in the shadows anymore. It can't be in the darkness. It needs to be in the light. Now, I've had the privilege over 20 plus years to know what recovery is. I've seen it. I've been working with people. And I have 2 things that I do in my life where I have a constant reminder of why I do it. So I coach football. And I've coached at a lot of different schools. And I've been coaching since 2002. Every now and then, I have these experiences. I'm in my car, I'm driving, I'm at a red light, and a car pull up next to me, and someone, usually younger than me, roll down the window, and they're trying to get my attention. Hey, coach! Oh, yeah, I coach them at this place. And they're screaming out of the car what they're doing right now in their life and what's happening with them. And that, always reminds me, that's why I do it. There's an impact that goes beyond the 2-3 years that I get to coach them. And when I coach them, it's not just about the game, it's about life. And the same thing happens to me in my field, in what I do, because I will run into it. It's happened here today. It happens just about everywhere I go. I've worked in my career primarily 3 places. Main Quest, some of you may remember Main Quest, Baden Street, and then the majority of it has been at Strong, the University of Rochester Medical Center. And each of those places, there are very memorable experiences I've had with patients that I've worked with that I keep coming back to, that continue to inspire me to do more, to do better, to continue to enhance the system in every way possible. Because I could be at a restaurant, at the mall, or wherever, and I'll get stopped by somebody. So a few years ago, I was at the hospital and I'm walking the hallway, and this guy stopped me. It's like, "Hey, I remember you." I'm like, "Oh boy." And he said, "You kicked me out of rehab." Now I kind of remember who he was. And he paused and he said, "That was the best thing that ever happened to me." And he started to tell me why that was the best thing that happened to him and what he's currently doing. And there's just numerous of those experiences where I'll run into, and I say patients because I work in a hospital, and that's the term we use. But I'll run into people that I've worked with, and it continues to inspire me because they'll remember something I said, something I did, something I helped them with that I don't remember, but the impact it had on them. So there's over 23 million people that are in recovery, more than 23. And this was a few months ago that I saw that number. It's probably much higher. That needs to be front and center. There's so many amazing and inspirational stories in recovery. We're hearing some here today, but all over the country. We need that in the news. We need that everywhere, because too often, you'll talk about, drug use, drug abuse, drug addiction to people, and, they'll have this conception of, "Oh, well, it's a choice." People are making a choice. Well, I say, this idea that it's a choice has been debunked a long time ago through science. Science actually have already proven that it has nothing to do with free will, because they're able to study animals using drugs and see that they have the same responses, using more of it, not being preferring the areas where the drug is administered. All of the different effects that you can think of, they've already proven, but the general public doesn't know that. But that's what we need to continue to educate people so that they know that there's science that have proven things. There's so many people living in recovery. I'll get questions from people, "Why do you continue to do this? You do this so many years. Why not do something else?" I say, well, I have the privilege of knowing what you don't know. From the outside looking in, you might think there's more failure than success. But in reality, there's a lot more success than there is failure. And that's what, everyone needs to know. So, as I was thinking, and I get questions a lot about, what exactly is addiction and what exactly is it that you do? Well, if you look up, there are many definitions of addiction, but if you look up the definition that ASAM provides, the ASAM, Association of American Society of Addiction Medicine. And I think it's the most accurate definition that they provide. I'll just read it to you. So addiction is a primary chronic disease of brain reward, motivation, memory, dysfunction in those areas of the brains. They lead to characteristics in biological, psychological, social, and spiritual manifestations. This is reflected in an individual pathologically pursuing reward and relief by substance use and other behaviors. So that then ends up being characterized in all sorts of areas of someone's life: their physical health, social, spiritual, legal, anything else you can think of. So what addiction treatment has to be is that it has to be this comprehensive process that not only helps someone by providing, therapy group and all of those traditional things that we can think of, but also support services in all of those areas that addiction affects, right? So we have to help with, we have to be partners with the criminal justice system. We have to be partners with the health system. We have to be partners with social services, HIV/AIDS services, and all of those different services, because it's not simple to describe what addiction treatment is, because addiction affects all aspects of someone's life. So addiction treatment has to assist with all aspects of someone's life. And we weren't always there. We're moving in that direction. We're getting, better as we go along as doing that. So that's what inspires me, is to continue to improve our system so that when we define addiction treatment, that anywhere you go, that is what it is. It's providing the therapy and processing that someone needs to deal with their own issues, trauma in their life, and everything else that's affecting them, but also the support services that has to be built around it in order to improve. And a lot of times, I like to use references to general medicine because that's what people understand. People understand general medicine. Here's a fact. The relapse rate, because that's one of the things people get hung up on. Well, they're always relapsing. They go back to using. Well, the relapse rate for common chronic medical conditions like diabetes and hypertension is about the same as it is for addiction. The same percentage of people that relapse and end up needing to go to the hospital or some sort of level of medical care for hypertension or diabetes is the same as it is for people that relapse in addiction. So the success rate is basically the same. But we don't talk about those chronic medical conditions in the same way. It's because of the emphasis on what society sees, what happens in society. We focus on the behavior, we focus on the drug. We're not focusing on the inspiration. So we all, and every chance I get, I try to do that, is to share the inspiration so that starts to become common knowledge. It's so that the over 23 million people become the story. Eventually it'll be, over 30 million people. That becomes the story, not the stories that are on the news. So I turn my page here. So, as I mentioned, I've had this front row seat to some amazing stories. I'm often really amazed by the people I get to work with, especially when I used to do real work as a counselor. Now I'm an administrator. That really amazed, sometimes perplexed by them, but most of the time really amazed by the patients I got to work with. And I'll tell you, real quick, the three main places that I've worked. At MainQuest, this was very early on in my career. I was really young. And I was doing an evaluation on a young lady. And, as I told you, every place I've been, I have this memorable story that sticks with me, that continues to inspire me. So I was doing an evaluation on this young lady, and she's telling me, the trauma that happened in her life. Things that her father did to her that I won't go into details. But I remember sitting there and thinking, oh my God, how am I going to help this lady? I can't even believe the things that she's telling me that happened to her. And I remember, and I don't know, I think it was divine intervention because I wasn't that wise. But I remember just pausing. And after she told me what she needed to tell me, and I just asked her, just 4 words I said to her, what do you need? And the next thing she did was bawl out, cried. And I just sat there and let her cry. Because she never got the chance to release what she was feeling inside from the things that she experienced. But the courage for her to sit in front of me and tell me what happened to her. So I feel blessed that there was enough in me to just pause and not go into, well, I'm going to need you to start group on Monday and you got to go to group 3 times a week and you're going to meet with your counselor. None of that. I just paused and just said those 4 words to her. And that was the most impactful. Now, at Baden Street, I have a colleague at Strong who always says, he's in recovery, and he says, addicts, we're creative geniuses going in the wrong direction. Nevertheless, a creative genius. So I don't know if you know Charles Brown. Don't tell him I quoted him. It's his quote. So I had this guy I was working with at Bain Street, and he could never make it to group, and he always had an excuse why he couldn't make it to group. And now I could have gotten upset and just said, you know what, you don't want it, you're not ready, I'm going to discharge you. But I realized that over the course of working with him for about actually might have been like 5 months. It was quite some time, and he was supposed to be in group like 3 times a week, and he barely made it once a week, right? I realized that he never used the same excuse twice. Now, again, I could have gotten upset and said to him, you're not ready, you're a pathological liar, you're just coming up with excuses. So next time I got a chance to meet with him, I mean, I'm talking stuff you couldn't even think of. Like, once he came and he didn't make it to group, the next time, sorry, you won't believe what happened. My landlord changed the locks on me, and I didn't even know. I couldn't get in my apartment, that's why I wasn't in group. One time he came, the next time I saw him, I said, you know what happened here on Monday? We rode his bike, then he got on the bus, then the bus left with his bike. So he had to chase his bike, and he never made it to group. So I remember that once I realized this, I said to him, you realize that you never use the same story twice. You're a storyteller. You just don't know it. There's creativity in you that you don't even realize. And he started writing. Now, I don't know what he's doing right now, but he was pretty good at fictional stories. So he might be very successful right now. So that, these are the stories I've had the privilege of witnessing. And I often, in my amazement of recovery, that over 23 million people, the resiliency, the perseverance, and the creativity that exists in that number, I always relate it back to, it's a popular parable. I don't know if you've heard about the carrot, the egg, and the coffee bean. Anybody heard that story? Okay, so it's a story about a young lady that was struggling in life. She's just struggling. She can't figure out, why good things are not happening to me, and when it seems like I might fix something and something else goes wrong. She goes to her mother. Sometimes there's a grandmother. So her mother takes her into the kitchen, takes out 3 pots, start boiling water in those 3 pots. Grab some carrots, some eggs, some coffee beans, and puts those things in the pot of water, boiling water. After a while, she takes them out. And she brings her daughter over. She said, what do you see? I see carrots, eggs, and coffee beans. And she said to her, right, which one are you? So the adversity in that story is the boiling water. All 3 of those things face the exact same adversity. Boiling water in a pot. The carrot starts out hard and strong, comes out soft. So that boiling water addiction, it can beat you. It can start hard, and it can break you down. It can take your life. The egg has a hard outer shell. It comes out hard. The other thing that boiling water of addiction can do, it can harden you. It can make you jaded, heartless, takes away, your feeling. You can have a sort of heart going in, and these experiences just harden you. The coffee beans remain the same. the water is different. So with the carrots and the egg, the water is the exact same. The coffee bean changes the water. So that hot boiling water, that adversity, that is addiction, that those coffee beans changed them. So those of you, the 23 million, those of you that are part of that 23 million, you're the coffee beans. That life circumstance that you faced, you turned it around. So instead of that hardening you, harden your heart, instead of that beating you down, you changed it. You changed it in a way that it brought out the flavors and the aroma of your creativity, your perseverance, and your resilience. We need to tell more. The world, this community, this region, the world, the state, everybody needs to hear more about the coffee beans and not the carrots or the egg. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you.